Hey guys, it's Stannis here. I talk about finances, my personal journey to wealth. Currently the stock portfolio is at $120,000, but today I won't be really showing off my account today or talking about it. I'm going to be talking about my travel to Asia. Last year I traveled to some parts in Europe. You guys can see that video on my channel, but yeah, today we're going to be talking about my trip to East Asia. Throughout the video, we're going to be talking about different spots I went to in East Asia, and hopefully you guys can go there as well without breaking the bank account like I did. At least that's what I think I achieved throughout my time there. Yeah, I'm going to show you guys my expenses and how much it cost me to actually go over there and like live there for like pretty much a month. And I wanted to tell you guys why I enjoy traveling to different spots instead of just, staying in the US or just buying like fancy random stuff. And then we're going to talk about my next travel goals and seeing where I want to go off to next, or if I want to go anywhere or just stay in the United States for the rest of my life. So first off, before I get too deep in the video, I want to show you guys what I just took with me, which is I just took a normal backpack, which actually expands pretty long, and there's some zippers on the side that actually allow you to put a lot of stuff in, and then this little like Adidas bag from Amazon, which allowed me to carry some stuff throughout the day. Usually it'd be my camera equipment, like just my Sony camera, and then my DJI Osmos 3. You might be seeing that a lot on Instagram now. I know I am. But yeah, that's pretty much all I brought. Brought some clothes, two pair of pants, like 7 shirts, 7 pairs of underwear, socks, a jacket. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty bare bones, because I had the mentality of like, hey, if I do need something, I can just buy it. Singapore was a great place for me to first drop off because everybody pretty much speaks English there, and I primarily just speak English and a little bit of Spanish. And yeah, so I wasn't really ready for the heat difference as well. I'm coming from Washington, which is generally pretty cold. So like, going to Singapore in the beginning of April, it's pretty hot. So that's like the first big difference that I noticed there. So I actually stayed in Singapore for 5 days. Just stayed in the normal hostel. It did what it was supposed to do, which is kind of just house me. So my main method of travel in Singapore was actually just taking buses and trains. The travel system in Singapore is actually really easy to use. If you do own a car in Singapore, you're considered very rich because you do actually need like $100,000 plus to actually buy a car there. It's just really expensive to buy a car over there. But like I said, the transportation is really nice. I would have no fear of anybody stealing your stuff there because, yeah, this is not how Singapore is. So the currency exchange from the dollar to the Singaporean dollar was actually pretty decent too. I don't know the conversion off the top of my head, but I know that Singapore is still pretty expensive compared to every other part I went to in East Asia. So pretty much what I did was I went to Marina Bay Sands, which is like kind of like the it's the spot with like the ship on top of the towers, and that's like I would consider like the tourist area because you got all like the sparkling trees over there. You have like the enclosed jungles with like flowers and just like a waterfall. That's pretty cool. That's generally where I spent most of my time. And then you can just come into the city and have also great food options. Also, I went to Sentosa Beach. I wasn't really planning on going there, but I actually luckily went over there, and it was pretty much free. I just needed to just pay for transportation. In conclusion, Singapore is a pretty chill first stop into Eastern Asia. It was pretty expensive, and I did feel like after 5 days, I pretty much have seen everything I could see, at least most of the tourist things. So next time I do happen to come around Singapore, I probably won't spend as much days as I did. So our next stop is Bangkok, Thailand, and let me tell you, I spent 8 days there. Honestly, I think that was probably more than enough time. But so my accommodation for Bangkok was actually hostels, and the hostels there are really cheap. So next time I'm around, I'll probably just spend a little bit more money and just get myself a single room. There was so much to do in Bangkok, especially over Songkran, which was April 13th to April 15th, and that's pretty much just a giant like water gun festival where everybody just sprays everybody with a bunch of water. Yeah, that was just really cool experience. It made me feel like a kid again, honestly. But honestly, I kind of just fell into Songkran unexpectedly because I didn't really plan out my travels. I just kind of wanted to go there during this time. Also was able to go to 2 EDM festivals. These type of festivals I've never really experienced in the US. They had like water guns just shooting a bunch of water. And yeah, that was pretty much like the difference of it. But it was really hot outside, and having the water guns being shot out during Songkran was really cool. So yeah, this Thailand was also really hot as well, but it wasn't as hot as Singapore, especially during Songkran, because I was constantly getting sprayed with a bunch of water and everything. And as everybody knows, Thailand, the currency exchange is really good. It's pretty hard to spend more than $50 a day. Even that, it's like pretty hard to spend $50. But I would definitely be spending a lot of money in Thailand just because I wanted to. Honestly, I felt like no matter what I spent, I was gonna be able to afford it, and it wasn't really hurt me that much. Especially for my previous travels, I feel like I haven't spent that much. So I wanted to spend a little bit more here, especially since I knew I could get more for what I paid for. Also, you can barter in Thailand. That's like definitely a thing, which I kind of liked. It was pretty different because every other spot that I've been to, you don't really barter. You just kind of just pay up the upfront price, and that's what it is. But Thailand, you're able to barter a little bit. And if you've never bartered before, it might be a little strange to actually ask for a different price than what they're trying to get, but it's fun. I definitely enjoyed my time. I bartered with some people, and another time I just paid the price. If you're nervous about bartering in Thailand, then I would just hop on the Facebook Marketplace and just lowball some random dudes on Facebook Marketplace, and that's pretty much all you need to know. That'll give you enough confidence and I feel expertise to just go into Thailand and barter your way through tourist activities. So in Thailand, the main method that I used to travel around Thailand, Bangkok, was taxis, and I just used the Grab app. And generally, every single Grab that I took was around like 500 baht or less, and it'd take you a pretty decent distance. If you were to take motorbike taxis, it would be like about half the price of a normal taxi. But I didn't really feel like falling off a motorbike, especially not in the beginning of my trip. So I usually steered away from that. But even though I haven't seen any car crashes or anything like that, and they do drive pretty crazy in Thailand, but you gotta let it happen. You just gotta like believe in the taxi drivers and believe that they're gonna be all good. And I came out all right. You probably will as well. I did happen to go on a motorbike, but I wasn't able to record it because I was pretty sketched out, honestly. I was just kind of focused on surviving the trip, and I really didn't want to like destroy any of my camera equipment on my phone, so I didn't get that on camera. But let me tell you, it was definitely an experience. I was riding around for like probably like 10-20 minutes, and it was the only option because late at night, especially if festivals happen in Bangkok, it gets really crowded and traffic gets really hectic, and pretty much the only way to get to any place smoothly is through motorbike. If you're not afraid of possibly injuring yourself, or you're just pretty used to driving or riding on motorbikes, then I'd probably just hop on motorbikes on Grab. So yeah, one thing that I did find kind of annoying is that Bangkok is majority a cash place, so you gotta pull out from the ATM, and you can't really use your credit card too often. As you guys know, I'm a fan of using credit cards, so I like to swipe my credit card. I don't really use cash in the United States. This is like kind of the only time I have to deal with cash is when I travel to different countries. But overall, it wasn't too big of a deal. It just kind of just showed all the bills in my pocket and dealt with all the change. Also, during my stay in Bangkok, I went to a bunch of just temples, took a bunch of pictures, walked around, and went to Khao San Road. If you guys don't know, Khao San Road is like where all like the bars are at, and like there's some clubs there as well, and it gets pretty hectic, especially during nighttime, and especially during Songkran. But definitely a spot to go check out. If you're not a fan of getting like really crowded areas, then there are like rooftop bars in Bangkok. I was able to go to one of them, and I enjoyed my time there. I got like 3 Moscow mules. I think in total it was probably like around like $30 to be like a rooftop bar and just kind of enjoy my time up there. It was pretty nice. All right, next stop is South Korea. South Korea was a pretty cool spot, but I did not do Seoul correctly because I only had 4 days there, and at this point in my trip I was feeling a little bit sick, so I wasn't able to go out to the capacity I really wanted to. But I did happen to go out, and let me tell you, like the bar scene, the club scene is pretty popping in Seoul. I believe I went to Hongdae, which is kind of like the area for tourists. It's really easy to meet up with people, especially through the Hostel app. And that's pretty much how I just met a bunch of random people. Just meet up with them and then go out clubbing with these random people. This was really fun. But on one of the days that I was feeling really good, I was able to see Seoul Tower and Gyeongbokgung Palace and the National Museum of Korea. So not too many spots, but it's a decent amount of areas. Next time I go around South Korea, I'll probably have to go back there because Seoul is a pretty big area, and I wasn't really expecting that, honestly, but. Yeah, it's a really big spot, but I didn't really explore too much of it. My main method of traveling was just taking Ubers pretty much. The Ubers there weren't that bad. I don't remember the exact prices, but it was probably around like $5 to $10 to any spot I really wanted to go to. The currency exchange for South Korea was also below the dollar, but generally things in South Korea were a little bit less expensive than Singapore. Tokyo, Japan was a really cool spot. I went to a hostel there. I was in the hostel for about 6 days. I was able to see a lot of stuff. I was able to see most of the tourist attractions like just Shinjuku, Shibuya, Imperial Palace, Tokyo Tower, Sensoji Temple, Tokyo Skytree, Team Labs, stuff like that. But I feel like honestly you probably just spend like days in each like section in itself in Tokyo. There's just so much to do there. You could just spend so much time there, honestly. Like, I didn't really spend too much time in, like, just random stores, but there's, like, just areas you just go into and just kind of just spend, like, probably a whole entire evening. They had really nice, pretty cool bars. Never really been to, like, a very small bar area, but in Golden Guy area, there's a bunch of just small bars that you go to. There's different, like, clubs you go to around, like, Shibuya as well. I was able to just go to one of them, but there's more, obviously. So next time I go back there, I'd probably just go check out different clubs in Shibuya. So the Japanese yen to the US dollar is also a pretty good conversion. That's probably around like the best time to actually go to Japan is like around April or just 2024 in general. Most things I bought probably around like $10 or less, and that's like in tourist areas as well, so it's pretty cheap. My main method of transportation in Tokyo was just taking trains. I did take Uber once or twice, but yeah, generally the trains there are pretty fast and pretty affordable. I feel like one way to like most areas is probably around like $3 to $7, which is pretty cheap, especially since how far it can take you and the amount of time it takes as well. So I actually got like a Suica card, but if you have a phone that supports the Suica cards or the Pasmo card, then you can just have it on your card and pay with your phone pretty much. That's what I ended up doing it once I got most of the money off that card. That's what I ended up doing it. I just transferred the money from that card to my iPhone, and I just paid with my iPhone because it's so much easier to just have your iPhone instead of an extra card carrying around with you. So the next thing I want to talk about is actually just the travel experience in itself and how fortunate I am to actually have gone to East Asia at such a young age, especially pretty much by myself. I saved up all the money that I needed to actually go on this trip, whether that had been like points or just money in general, but still feel very, very fortunate of actually going over there. I really like going to different spots because you go to all these different spots where the interactions in daily life are a little bit different than what you're used to, which is definitely a change. It's not that much of a change, but it's a little bit different and it's kind of interesting. And of course, I recorded like so much footage of my travels and I took so many pictures, but I still feel like it's not enough. But of course you gotta live in the moment. You can't always be recording or taking pictures, so that's just how traveling works and how I prefer to travel. But I do have a lot of memories cooped up now, and I can just always look back on these days where I've traveled to East Asia by myself. A lot of people will never be able to travel to East Asia, right? Whether that be like financials or just not have enough time, or they're just afraid to go and nobody else wants to go with them. All right, but I say is, hey, if you have enough money saved up and you have an opening of time, and it might not be the perfect timing, right? But you have time available in your schedule to actually go to a place and experience something different, I would just go. Like, worst thing that happens is you just stay in the hotel the whole entire time or stay in the hostel the whole entire time and you don't go outside. But at that point, like, you're gonna you're gonna want to just leave the hostel because you didn't travel 16 hours on a plane ride to just sit in a hotel or a hostel. You're gonna want to go out there and explore, see all the tourist attractions, meet up with different travelers, and just talk about their experiences while traveling. There's not gonna be a perfect time for you to just get up and leave and go to different countries, like whether you're going across the state, going across your country, going to different states, or going to different cities. It's like the same principles, honestly. It's just it takes longer to get there. That's like the only difference. And you have to deal with like getting into the country and getting out of the country. That's about it. And like maintaining a passport. But other than that, like that's about it. And you get to experience new cultures and just different ways of life. And I feel like it's pretty mind-opening, especially since most people don't do it, and they're kind of just accustomed to their lives and the place wherever they live at, and they think that's how life is. But I definitely feel a sense of appreciation to like just different aspects in my own country compared to other areas. I like certain spots. I like certain things more here than I do other areas, and I like certain things over there more than I do in my own country. But that's kind of like the beauty of traveling, is you kind of go wherever you want to go, experience that country for what it's best for. And yeah, obviously not every single country is the same, and everything has like their ups and downs, but I would consider most of the countries in East Asia pretty cool, and I would like to go back and travel back there. Especially for right now, I don't think I'd be moving over to East Asia anytime soon. But I would think about just going there for a couple, like probably like 3 months out of the year, if I ever get to a point where I have that much money and I could just live over there. I think I would be open to doing that. As for my next travels, I would like to go to South America, or maybe like Eastern Europe, but I don't really see myself traveling for the next 2 years or so. Hopefully the next time I'm able to travel, I'll be able to travel with some of my friends, because I've yet to travel with some friends. I'd like to have a little bit different experience from solo traveling. Even though like I do enjoy solo traveling, I would like to see how it is to travel with somebody else, at least one other person, honestly. Next goal for traveling is hopefully I'm able to have more time. Usually when I travel, I spend like a month. I would like to spend like probably like 2 or 3 months just traveling. That's definitely a lot more time than I've ever done, but I really want to just see how it goes for me. I would like to see more spots within the country than just kind of going to the main city in the country and then dipping out. I would like to set up like a business account so I could write off most of these expenses on my business and just write it off on taxes so I can save some money. But that's once again for later on. That's just some further goals. I feel that's pretty smart as well. People who do write off their traveling expenses. Okay, now for the thing that everybody probably wants to hear is how much did I spend on this trip actually. Well, I don't know if I'm gonna do all this math. Alright, yeah, okay, we'll talk about it. Alright, so generally how I planned this start off my planning was I just started to look at plane tickets, because I knew plane tickets were gonna be the most expensive thing for the whole entire trip if I didn't use points. So I looked at Amex and I looked at Chase portals, and I just looked at the airlines, and I figured out that the cheapest flight was actually going to be through the Chase portal. So I booked one-way flights going from Seattle to Singapore, which amounted to 27,108 points and $91.72. The actual dollar amount was closer to $300, but since I have the Chase Reserve credit card, it gives me $300 a year for airfare. But previously I happened to use some of that amount throughout the year, so only I had like around like $200 left on it. So anyways, I ended up paying $91.72 for the flight from Seattle to Singapore. The only problem with this flight was that it did have a 1 hour layover in San Francisco, and actually I happened to miss it, but it wasn't that big of a deal because I called up Chase and they got me another flight, which just happened to be 8 hours later. So I just spent a lot of time in the San Francisco lounge, which was really nice. This guy pretty much just drank and ate food for 8 hours and watched YouTube. So it wasn't the worst thing. Definitely could have been worse, but we eventually made it to Asia, so that's all I really cared about. Leaving Asia was from Tokyo NRT to back to Seattle. So that flight amounted to $52,000. 654 points to leave Tokyo to go back to Seattle. So yeah, that was a pretty decent exchange from points to flights. I happened to get into Asia and leave Asia for under $100 and around 77,000 points, which is pretty crazy. So I also did take flights pretty much from country to country in East Asia. So my flight from Singapore to Bangkok, Thailand, I did use Singapore Airlines, and it was 13,500 points and $49.53, which was, it was an alright exchange for points, but I just didn't want to spend any more money, so I just used up the points, and that's what I got, which was pretty reasonable. And then I spent $109.65 from Bangkok to Seoul, and then $73.30 from Seoul to Tokyo. So the total amount in flights that I took was 93,262 points and $324.20. Yeah, I'm pretty proud that I did it that cheaply, honestly. I know most people, they're probably gonna pay around like $2,000 going to Asia and like bouncing around and coming back home. It's gonna cost you a lot, especially if you don't have lounge access like I do, because I do have Amex Platinum. They give me priority pass, so I was able to go to every single lounge pretty much in these airports, eat and drink for free before getting on my plane and then flying off. So that also did save me money. So that's also another expense that I'm sure other people have to deal with, but luckily I did not have to. So after I booked my flights, I started worrying about, okay, where I'm gonna stay. I gotta start booking my accommodation. So I just pretty much go to Hostel World and just started booking hostels. And usually when I go through Hostel World, I wanna choose a hostel that's pretty close to the city center or pretty close to like a metro. So I don't have to do too much walking or traveling through public transportation. So once I figure out the locations, and I also look at the cost and if it's a pretty sociable hostel. So my general goal is around $50 or less for each day of stay, which I did pretty much achieve for everything, especially in Thailand. Thailand, I spent like $12 a day, or like $10 a day. It was really affordable. For Singapore, I spent $313.52 to stay for 5 days, so to stay for 5 nights, which is pretty reasonable. Thailand, I stayed there for 8 nights and it amounted to $108.96. So really good deal right there. I actually spent more money on a dinner than my whole entire stay at this hostel in Bangkok, which is kind of funny to think about, but sometimes you choose when and when not to spend money. I guess I just happened to really want to go to that restaurant, and I spent like $300 at that restaurant, so I did have a good time though. It was a hell of an experience, but like I said, I just think it's pretty funny that I spent more at a dinner than I did sleeping at a place for 8 days. The next spot I slept at was the one in Seoul. It was a single room, so it was a little more expensive, but even altogether, I just spent $245.30 to stay 4 nights. In Tokyo, Japan, a little more expensive. I spent $298.29 for 6 nights. The hostel was located in Shinjuku, so it was pretty close to Shibuya and obviously really close to all the major train stations, so I was able to get everywhere I wanted to rather easily. So yeah, I spent $884.94 for 23 days, and if you average it out, I pretty much spent $38.47, which was under $50 a day, which was my goal. So for all the money I spent on activities, food, and just like miscellaneous stuff like eSIMs or drinks or just like club entries and toiletries, I spent $3,288.81, and total for the trip was $4,498.05. And experiencing all these events and seeing all these countries and cities within April, I feel like is really worth it. If I didn't have any points, it probably would push me to around like closer to, let's say, 7,000 or 6,000. Yeah, it probably would have pushed me out to like closer to $6,500 to $7,000. So that's why it's really important to build up your points for your credit cards. Obviously, just build up your credit card points normally and don't try to spend more just so you get points, because that doesn't make any sense. You can just save more for your trip if that's really the case. That's really what you want to do. But just saving points, using your credit card like a debit card, so you don't rack up any interest on those credit cards. You eventually just start to build up a lot of points, and you can just go on these trips like this, and you can just pretty much travel outside the country really easily. This is the first time I actually counted up all my expenses. Honestly, I could kind of feel pretty indifferent about it. I'm a little bit more butthurt about not like investing for the month of April and the month of March, because prior to my trip, I want to make sure I have enough money to actually see it through and not like pull out any money from my stocks, right? So I didn't really invest too much money during the month of March, and then April I didn't invest any money really, because like I said, I want to make sure I had enough money to make it through the trip, and if I really did need to like an immediate ticket to go back home, I could. So I did invest during the month of April, but May I'm gonna definitely start up my investing once again, close to around $3,000 a month into my stock portfolio, and we're gonna continue growing it. Hopefully we hit $200,000 this year. All right, guys, that's pretty much the end of the video. But if you guys have extra money and you guys have points, travel outside the country. You're gonna have a great time. East Asia was wonderful. I had a really good time in Western Europe as well. I'm sure Eastern Europe is pretty dope, and same thing with South America and all around the world, honestly. You're only alive for so long, and it's pretty cool to just go somewhere else and see something different. If you did happen to make it through the whole entire video, please like and subscribe. If you're willing to support my channel and my travels, then there's links in the description down below.